we get a sailboat, chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe.
This is Margarita, the normal one in a not quite normal marriage.
And this is Peter. He's a little bit different, which keeps me on my toes. Together we are on an adventure that didn't work out as planned, but we are fighting back, so come join us.
In last week's episode, we finally left Cartagena late morning on Friday. It was really good sailing, but we sailed right into some squally conditions and are located right at that black circle. We have a northerly front coming down and we must get into the Caymans before Wednesday. At the moment, it looks like we are on target, but the squalls have other ideas. A brand new day with not a cloud on our horizon. Don't write in, people. I can see the damn clouds. I'm speaking metaphorically. There's Margarita the trooper, nauseous but still doing her shift. I'd be crying on the bed if that was me.
We're going to have to ride these squalls. Like last night, about midnight, it was awesome. We had this bunch of cells connected in a line, but they hadn't actually, the middle ones hadn't actually dumped. The one up forward just started dumping as it went over us. It was magnificent, where we had the moon out and it came over and it was all awesome and eerie like this, and then all of a sudden the wind hit and it went up about 12 extra knots, and I got on the main and all we did was we kept it on auto and I just dumped the main. As soon as we started to rounding up, or you know when the waves come up and they kick your ass around and it starts to round up, as soon as that started to happen, I just dumped the main. 9 knots for almost an hour. So it was bloody awesome, because when it passed, the front cell, it was dumping, so we were getting sucked into that. And then as the middle part passed, it started dumping, and we were getting sucked into that. And then the next one, so consecutively, it went all along. It was bloody awesome. The order for today is to catch as many of these cells as possible, because we don't want to get caught out in 35 knots northerly blowing us down south from Caymans to Roatan. That would suck. And then Margaret would be at sea for another few more days. She's having a hell of a time. Oh, here we go. We've got to ride this. Sorry, I've got to pack it in.
We've had squalls almost every hour since last night. The winds are good and it keeps you on your toes, but the trouble is the wind drops off dramatically afterwards.
That was a failure. There's another one we might be able to get into. Well, he's hoping, because otherwise we're not going to make it. Well, at least I had a shower. You might notice that my shirt is inside out. I'm getting a second wearing.
Ooh, here we go again. And it wasn't blowing.
And there's just squall upon squall upon squall, and what, the best we got was 20 knots, so a bit unhappy. I mean, there's a bit blowy over there, but I'm not there.
So we sailed over there and it was good. This was the smoothest one yet, and it lasted a long time. Here we have good boat speed with apparent wind of about 27, so it's probably around 30. Not 35 as predicted, but good enough. But then afterwards, our boat speed drops to 5 knots. Bugger. And then we had another blue hole, and again we're almost back on schedule. And the squalls kept coming, keeping me on my toes. It was great fun. Our tiny battery bank of only 240 amp hours theoretically ought to cover the power for the autopilot, but it just isn't the case. I am steering as often as possible just to save the batteries.
The situation's changed. We thought we were only going to get squalls for Sunday night and Monday, the Monday morning, but that's changed. The forecast is some wave out there, and we're going to get squalls up to 35 tonight and up to 30 tomorrow night. The good thing about it is it's east southeast direction, and we're sort of running a bit with it. We're at 110 to 120, so we're a bit off the wind, so it's not so dangerous. It's really a doddle. But unfortunately, the squalls weren't like the excellent surfing one last night where we rode for an hour at 9 knots. They mainly just a blustery affair, 15 minutes. We're not going to maintain, even though the last day and a half we've been close to 7 knots average, we're not going to do it now. Although I'm still having fun. Well, a little bit of respite. We've got a big blue hole, so we shouldn't have any squalls for another hour or two, so which is good. Usually we get them between every half an hour to an hour, and yes, we go flying along at 8.5 knots, but then we go at 5.5, 6.5 knots afterwards. So even though the forecast is saying yes, 25 to 30, I think he's putting in that the squalls are only 25 to 30, really about 15. One thing I want to mention is the reefing system in this is woeful. This is a slab reefing system that I put in just so I wouldn't have to leave the cockpit. Well, in actual fact, I have to leave the cockpit all the time because it pinches down at the tack and doesn't pull in the clue. So, I mean, at the time I got the best I could with the sheaves and whatnot, but it's just woeful. I don't know what I'm going to have to do. I was going to film it, but it's embarrassing. It's like 15 steps. I have to keep on going to the mast and physically pulling from the tack to get the clue to get lower. But of course I need someone here to then start winching. Otherwise, as soon as I release, it goes back to pinching at the tack and releasing the clue. So it's just a comedy of errors. So, I mean, here the sail is so poorly set, it's not funny. I mean, it's just terrible, but because we're going with it, it's acting more like a parachute than anything, so it doesn't really matter.
Hang on, you must be asking yourself, why the hell the video is stopping? Well, if you do like the video, give us a like. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe it and click the bell button so you know when our videos comes up.
The boss has spoken. Gonna be a long night, like last night. Far out. Okay, the race is on. We've got one day now. We've got 23 hours to get into port at Cayman's, and we need to cover, yes, 7 knots average. My God. We had, I know I gave up about 6 hours ago, But then about half an hour later we had wind, beautiful, beautiful wind. We were flying 8 and 9 knots. So we caught up a bit. So, I mean, it's not 35 knots, but it was bloody good fun. I physically cannot steer anymore. I steered almost all day trying to save battery power. Our new wind generator, thanks to Cliff, good on you Cliff, is not working in the most optimal fashion. It suits this boat to a T. We're getting to maybe 2.5 amps, and the autopilot runs 5 to 9 amps depending on the demand. So I'm actually running the motor at the moment. Jesus, what the f? We had 35 knots come through and the boat heeled over and rounded up. I'd like to say I was the epitome of efficiency and good sailormanship, but me trying to get around the helm to get to all the ropes, and my safety and my clown pants clip getting caught in all the winches, I think it would have looked like a bit like a child trying to get that lolly that's just out of reach. So it would have been a bit funny to watch. I should have mentioned, yeah, we've got brand new Trojans in there, and I don't want to run them down too much. We're already at 60%, and we didn't have much sun today, so the solar panels didn't do much good. So I'm going to run the motor for a couple of hours and let it do the autopilot, and hopefully the moon will be coming out probably in 2 hours time, and hopefully we'll have a break in the clouds and I'll be able to see where I'm going, and then I can take the place of the autopilot. So it's going to be a very long night, not very enjoyable. I don't think it's a margarita type night, so I'm going to try and do the whole thing myself. Margarita's just got up, she's making something to eat, and hopefully she'll relieve me because I am absolutely rooted. I don't know how little sleep I've had, but I haven't had a great deal. We're 6.5 knots. I'm doing the best I can, but I think it's just slipping away. Ooh, red sky and morning. Sailor take warning. Northerly approaching. You might hear the motor going. Every scrap of sail is up. Even my undies are hanging on the line because the wind is a bit behind us. We're using everything to try and get there this afternoon. Margaret is still feeling crook, so it'll be good if we can get in and give her some peace. Last night when we had the 35 knots, I was trying to reduce all sail possible because the main jib, it was already about furled about a third, and I thought I'll just leave that one up. I'll just bring in the staysail instead, because it's much easier to bring in the staysail. Well, the sheet from the main jib dropped within the cage here and then wrapped itself up in the furling line, so I couldn't furl this. And of course, once that this was trapped in here, I couldn't fully furl the main jib either. So it's a bit of a clusterfuck all up. I wish I could have filmed it because I wish I had an overhead camera. Look at me running backwards and forwards, banging my head, sitting on stanchions, tripping over. It's a friggin' comedy of errors, but we got through it, and it also gave us probably 9.5, 10 knots. Oh, I should add that we got to 10.8 knots last night, and it wasn't in that 35 knot squall, because basically in that squall we were just leaning over.
And then the wind promptly died. Might be the prefrontal stuff, so it doesn't look good for us getting in tonight.
I'm assuming the public servants, the port captain, only work till 5, so we have to contact them 12 nautical mile out. So Let's hope he can work an extra half hour an hour, because I really don't want Margarita to be out another day. She's only had 2 meals in, 4 days, and they've been tiny, and most of that has all been spewed up. So, and I just found out she hasn't been drinking water. I wouldn't mind going into port myself because I'm a bit of a pussy and I've had something like 8 or 9 hours sleep in 3 nights. So it's time to have a little rest. What a piece of luck. We just got wind from the south. It'll be just enough to push us in. So it's a bit of fluke. How good's that? Actually, it wasn't a fluke. I looked at the charts and I could see that about 2:45 there was going to be a southerly coming through, and I was just creating drama for you guys, going, oh, they're not going to make it. They're going to have to heave to and hang out all night. But it was all false, people, and you fell for it.
There go all the spear guns. You're not allowed to spear in the Caymans. What the hell am I going to do around here? Maybe they're going to be caves. Oh, baby.
It's dry, so I really don't know what to...
No injuries at all during the trip. Put the sails down, smashed my head against the end of the boom, and now there's blood all over the boat. And this is where I was doing the Q flag. I should point out that we lost our wind and we got here after 4:30, so they hit us with, normally it's free to get into the Caymans, but they hit us with a $70 fee because we were half an hour late. That's a bit of a bugger, but the $70, it's well worth Margarita having a good night's sleep and actually eating something and actually ingesting some water, because she practically had, well, nothing really in the whole trip. Did you?
No, I had food, but it would come out.
Yeah, so she had food, but it had come out. Doesn't that mean that you didn't have food then?
Well, for a period of time.
Yeah.
It stayed there.
That's an interesting theory you have.
It was clearly not a pleasant trip for me. I'm not a passage type of girl, definitely, because it's not comfortable, it's not enjoyable at all, and I just stay stuck in bed during the day and waiting for my shift at night where I feel comfortable because the wind is blowing on my face.
Well,
so I might have to...
What about Long Reef?
Yeah, Long Reef,
On
it
Long
was...
Reef, you did the
was
entire
okay.
Gulf of Carpentaria, and that was a messy sea. That was a real messy sea, and
Well,
you did the entire nights.
But the
for 3
motion
nights.
of the cat is not so severe as the motion of the monohull that really does.
So I think Margarita's being a bit hard on herself. We started out quite poorly because we didn't get a good night's sleep because we were working so hard at the boatyard, and we got to bed at like 2:30 a.m. the day before, or the night before we left, and we left early. So I think you do have it in you, but you know, if you don't want to do it, I don't know what we're going to have to do, people. We might have to change our sailing plans if Margarita is not into it. South Pacific is
It's
basic.
not being into it. If I cannot control getting seasick, decide, oh no,
I know.
I'm going to get
All right, okay,
feeling
so
awful
if you
all the
can't
time
do
because
it,
it's so pleasurable.
all right, so if you can't do it, then we're going to have to do something else, because the South Pacific is such huge sailing distances. It's basically a lot of sailing. So we have to do something else. We're basically anti-vagabond, aren't we? Or opposite vagabond. We start with a really nice cat, and now we're on this boat. And we're not very successful either. There you go. We're opposite the vagabond. Well, looks like we have a bit of a crisis, people. Originally, we wanted to do the South Pacific, so we set this Cayman's run up just as a bit of a test to see how Margarita would go. So we've got a bit of a problem. So we need to rethink what we can do together.
Yeah, so the seasick pills that I've been trying, none have actually worked out for me. I heard about a patch. We'll see if they have it here in the Caymans, if I can get it, because I haven't been able to find it in all the other countries because they just don't have it. And a lot of you have advised me that, so I'll give it a try when I find it. But it has been very unpleasant, to say
The least.
The least. So we're thinking on giving a shot to do the Eastern Caribbean because it's like short hops between islands, 1 to 2 days, 3 days. And with that, I think I can cope and see if I can overcome this nauseous seasickness problem to see if I can actually do the South Pacific, right?
So here's hoping, people. It's a bit up in the air.